Hiya and welcome to Brain Injury Bites, where we provide help and advice for people after a brain injury. My name's Brooke and I've lived with a traumatic brain injury since 2007.
Hi, I'm Ashwini and I'm a trustee at Headway Warrington. I'm also a senior associate solicitor focusing on catastrophic injury, including brain injury. Hello and welcome back to our podcast. Today we're going to be talking about depression. This is something that we've talked about in previous episodes, but it's important that it really gets its own episode as it is such a big topic. I think it's fair to say that a number of people will experience depression following a brain injury, and we're going to be talking about some of the symptoms and also help and advice. It is important to realise that feeling sad after a significant event like an injury, a serious injury, is normal, but it could also be a sign of depression. It could be that you're feeling a loss of interest in activities. It could even just be normal activities of daily living, getting up, getting washed, getting dressed. You might find that there are changes to your eating patterns or your sleeping patterns, that you just don't feel like eating or drinking. You may be experiencing very low self-esteem or very negative thoughts about your situation or about the future. You may experience a loss of interest in things that you do with your friends, socialising, etc. And that can, of course, lead to isolation. It could be that all of these things are as a result of the injury that you've had, or as a result of depression. It's a very fine line because the two can be so closely linked. And in fact, we've got some statistics from Headway, which is a national charity that supports people with brain injuries, who found that on average, 50% of people with a traumatic brain injury experience depression in their first year of recovery, which is a huge amount. Brooke, I'd like to bring you in at this point because we have talked about depression before in some of the other things that we've discussed. And I'm thinking in particular, when you were first out of hospital, when you were in discussions with your doctors and talking about this 3-year recovery period.
Yeah, I clung on to that. I'd read somewhere. I think what happened first of all is I was in hospital and people were coming to see me, and I thought my life was quite good. I thought it was a bit like being a Z-list celebrity, to be quite honest. And yeah, I was sort of riding this wave of happiness that people used to come and see me, and I kind of thought that's what my life was going to be like. But it wasn't until I got out of hospital and I started actually taking interest and started reading. I mean, I had this thing. I was told I had this thing called a brain injury, which I'd never even heard of before. I'd start, and bear in mind that when it happened to me, there was literally nothing in the media. I started reading about it, and I think generally a path that people go on, that you start to become, it's as your awareness increases, you start to become more aware of your situation, and you start to understand what's happened to you and the implications it's going to have for the rest of your life, and then with that comes a wave of depression, and with that sort of research, something that's bandied about is your brain will heal for 2 years, and then it's kind of the only thing you can do is to use techniques to overcome the problems that you're still left with. I was never I've never been an organised person, and this made me even less so. So this was really, really scary for me. I thought I'm never going to get better because I'm never going to become organised, and I've got a brain injury now, and you need your brain to become organised, and it's injured, so it's never going to happen for me. So there was something that I kept seeing, was that your brain heals for 3 years. I mean, obviously it didn't happen, but I remember clinging on to this 3-year period, and right up until like the 11th of May 2010, which will have been 3 yees after. And when I woke up on the 12th of May, I wasn't better.
It didn't magically go away.
It sounds ludicrous now, it sounds stupid, but that is honestly what I was thinking. And depression, it's a funny thing, 'cause I was told that I wasn't ever majorly depressed, but I would disagree with that. But I suppose I was told that I was never depressed on the grounds that I still, got up, had a wash, made the most of myself and stuff every day. But I'd say it affects everybody differently, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That was something that something that I've always done.
I know. I think it's fair to say that depression manifests itself in so many different ways. So the fact that you were able to take care of some of your basic needs, that doesn't necessarily mean that you weren't then putting a brave face on things, or just, some people might appear completely normal, for want of a better term, but actually, scratch beneath the surface, and they're really struggling.
Yeah, and I mean, the fact that I didn't really understand what was wrong with me, and you try to examine what's wrong with you, and you come up with things like my memory's not working, and I'm tired all the time, and people just kind of not ridicule it, but people come up with suggestions like, just you've got to sleep better, and you've just got to man up, you've got to get over yourself, and it's I was made to feel like I didn't have any real problems, so why am I like I didn't work full time, I didn't have a family and mortgage, to things to I was lucky. I was very lucky that I'd survived this head injury, that you should be somehow thankful. I mean, of course I was thankful, but I think it's the fact that I didn't have any of those things that made me feel left out, that I was like on my own. I felt like I was like, like, you don't have any real problems, so get out of the way, the people that do have problems.
Yeah, and that's obviously not a helpful strategy, because if they're your problems, they're real to you, and there's no sort of benchmark of what constitutes a genuine problem.
I was always comparing myself to other people as well. Like, you don't see yourself as being better off than a lot of people. You don't ever look at it in a positive sense. You only see people who are better off than you. You only ever look up, you never look down, do you? So
yeah, and we have talked about comparing yourself, and not the importance of not comparing yourself a lot, haven't we? So, yeah. But I think you raise an interesting point about when it comes to depression. One of the things, one of the useful tips that we would suggest is to try not to focus on those negatives, to try and focus on the positives instead. And not comparing yourself is one of those, because you'll only ever see yourself in a worse light.
Yeah, I remember just thinking that it's after this 3-year thing, this is what I'm stuck with. It's never, ever going to get better. And I don't want to say that, I don't want to joke about this, that I didn't ever have suicidal thoughts, but I just remember thinking, like, what if I was not here? You're just kind of a burden. You're not contributing anything to this world. All you're doing is taking, and that in itself just that's quite a very depressing thing.
Yeah, and I can see how you'd feel that. It's and I wonder whether there might even be maybe just some reflection, certainly from clinical staff, in terms of how the messaging is put across in relation to recovery periods. Because yes, 2-3 years is the sort of the accepted science that's when your brain will make the most recovery. Yeah. After that, it largely plateaus. And it's not to say that no further recovery is possible. Recovery is still possible on an ongoing basis, but the gain is perhaps less drastic, isn't it?
What's always worked for me is like challenging yourself and making yourself do things and new experiences. It was recommended that I stayed in Scarborough, just stayed around there and didn't really push myself. And I came to Manchester on my own, which was just a bit. It was very, very difficult.
I think, the fact that you did push yourself, you could have accepted that advice to just stay put and just let things just, continue as always. But the fact that you felt able to push yourself and out of your comfort zone, but to try and experience new things that could be positive in itself was I dare say, and I don't want to speak for you, but, it was probably a very positive step for you in terms of coming to terms with your injury.
Yeah.
Just picking up on what you were saying before, Brooke, about, as you gain more insight, that too can then lead to an increase in depression. I think you've got a perfect analogy for this, haven't you?
I always said it's like a sort of like a Big Dipper. On a fairground ride, you've got to go down before you can get better and work on your problems. You've got to realize what your problems are.
That's absolutely true. But even if you do work on it with professional help, for example, I think it's also fair to say that there will be ups and downs anyway. You know, you could be feeling great one day and the next day can be very different.
Something that's bothered me is like what some days you do feel great, and then you kind of think that you're better, you think you're totally fine, and you use all your energy in that one day, and then the next day when you wake up you are absolutely exhausted, the fatigue's hit you massively. And whenever I've been really tired, my thoughts seem to be the same. You just think depressing thoughts.
And on those days when you're very tired and your thoughts are more negative, how do you manage that? What do you do?
Not very well, I don't think. I think the thing is, because I forget what I've done day to day. When I get up and I'm exhausted, you feel useless and you've got no energy, and you just start to blame yourself. But because I don't forget, I don't remember the day before. I mean, even if I've had a particularly physically exerting day the day before, I won't necessarily remember it on the next morning when I wake up. I'll wake up and I'll be exhausted, and then them negative thought patterns. So I think one thing I've wanted to do is leave a note for myself saying that I am going to be tired the next day, and then, you know, at least I'll be a bit more prepared for it.
I think that's a really good tip, actually. And I suppose it's also, don't beat yourself up about it. You know, it's okay to have days where you don't feel like you can achieve very much, or where you are tired. Don't be afraid to get things wrong. Cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, my psychologist has always said that to me, that I'm too harsh on myself. But I don't know. I've got a theory that if I wasn't harsh on myself, then I wouldn't have made any progress at all. So
interesting.
There's definitely but yeah, being harsh on yourself is not good. I'm my own worst critic. I think most people probably are.
And in terms of any sort of feelings of depression, etc., have you yourself sought any professional help, if you don't mind me asking?
I've had a neuropsychologist, Russell Sheldrick, who's been brilliant. My mum said he was always on the ward watching, because I worked in a bar at the time. I was a student, and so loads of people came to visit me, and my mum thought he was getting like annoyed with that, but he said on the contrary, that like stimulation is good. It's good to see people and stuff. So I think that's a good thing to be. You know, the worst thing you can be is alone. Because if it's just you and your negative thoughts, then you don't stand much of a chance. But I think to look for people, to look for friends, and just genuinely don't think you're going to be. I mean, I always used to think I was a burden. I still do. But, you know, like going on nights out and stuff, you know, I used to make an appearance for half an hour, and then I'd go home because I was too tired, and I just thought I was just annoying people. But that's probably not the case.
No, and it's important to build your networks, you know, strengthen your networks and build new ones. And whether that's going out for half an hour or, you know, just spending time one-on-one, whatever works. But I think
keep yourself relevant, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. It's, you know, spending time with friends, family, people who are going through something similar, you know, so that you're not always alone or just stuck in that sort of pattern of negativity.
You don't want to get. I don't really mean keep yourself relevant. I mean people keep yourself, because you don't want to be forgotten about. Because if you keep avoiding people, then people think that you don't want to be there, and then people will stop asking you, and then the result of that is you just going to be left in the house on alone.
And that's easier said than done, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to really make an effort. I've really had to make an effort to make myself go out. But you have to do that, because otherwise...
And that can have more benefits than you perhaps realise as well. You know, at the time you might be thinking, I'm just, you know, a bit tired or can't be bothered. But, you know, it is part and parcel of keeping those networks. And people might also see and ask, you know, are you okay? People pick up on so much, don't they?
And you can become quite easily overwhelmed. Like, I've not really wanted to be in that situation where a lot of people are talking to me, because it just becomes exhausting.
So you've worked with Russell for a long time, and I think it's fair to say that however he works is in a very subtle way.
Yeah, quite possibly. Well, the one thing I noticed, the office was on the first floor of the old part of Salford Royal Hospital. And I always remembered that whenever I was going up them stairs was quite a depressing time. But whenever I was coming down, it was always a much happier time. So he was obviously doing something.
Yeah. We don't know what, but he was doing something to make you feel better about your situation.
Having somebody to talk to. I mean, like, at first, when I first moved back to Scarborough, I used to come from Scarborough to see him because it was that good for me. And also that was the start of an independence for me. I used to get the train over.
And I guess, those are big things in themselves when you sit and break it down. We talked about some of the signs or symptoms of depression, that sort of, loss of interest in activities. But the fact that you were pushing yourself to get on a train from Scarborough, make your way over to Salford Royal to see somebody for a professional appointment, that's quite a big thing. And it's important to realise that and accept that was a huge achievement. It may seem like a very routine thing to do, and it may have seemed like that at the time, but it's a huge achievement in itself.
So I was always comparing myself to my friends who were like working down in London and stuff, and I always saw what I was doing is so petty. And you've got to get out of that mindset, because your friends, one thing to remember, that your friends don't have a brain injury, do they?
Did you, when you were spending time with your friends or your family, did you talk to them about how you were feeling?
Probably not as much as I should have done. One, because I didn't really realise what was going wrong with me. And two, I always felt that my problems were just so menial, compared to their problems. And I felt it wasn't worthy of discussion. But you do have to get over that.
And I suppose now that you've got a little more insight than you perhaps had back then, what piece of advice would you give 2007 Brooke?
Just to sit with yourself and just write your problems down, and because you don't have to come up with anything on the spot. You can sit, and you've got all the time in the world to write your problems down and take that list of problems and discuss it with someone. Because if I went to discuss something with somebody, then being put on the spot, I wouldn't remember anything.
Yeah,
you do have to. I always thought it was good to write things down, particularly going to see Russell as well, because if I go to see him, I felt like I was being put on the spot, and I couldn't remember anything, and I would spend this journey home thinking of what I should have said.
Yeah.
And if you don't mention these things, and you don't get help from them, and
well, the danger is that you just forget, so you just say, "Oh, everything's fine."
And I think the thing was with Russell, I always used to like boast and tell him things that I was doing that was good.
Yeah.
And then, I probably wasn't using him to his full potential. I only really wanted to say positive things, and maybe he just saw that was a good thing, that I wanted to say positive things.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. It's, in terms of a road towards recovery, maintaining that positive outlook.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is important to air what's on your mind, to talk about how you're feeling, and not, as I say, not comparing yourself to other people. Your problems are your problems.
Yeah, and the your problems aren't they? It's just, I mean, the thing is as well, you don't ever know what's going on inside somebody's head.
No.
I just used to think that other people would think that I don't have any problems because I don't have to work, and I don't have like a mortgage to pay and stuff like that. But I think also that the fact that I didn't have any of that was a problem to myself, because I just felt isolated, and
perhaps some things of your routine were different, so you probably had more time to dwell on your problems.
You do have problems that are just different. You become, having a brain injury, you become just different to everybody else.
I guess as well, thinking back to when you were first in hospital and that fake environment, everything was about you. It was all about your physical recovery. All eyes were on you, your friends, your family, and so on. But over time, that focus shifts, and that can be quite difficult to come to terms with in a way.
I always liken that to coming off probably Big Brother's not even relevant now. But I remember when people used to go into the Big Brother house, and then these seemingly normal people, like massive sort of celebrities, but then the fame was very short lived, and it must have been difficult for them. That's what I thought, that I was this like a Z-list celebrity, that everybody wanted to come and see me, and then all of a sudden you're not, and then people just get on with their normal lives.
Yeah, and you're still there, and you've still got problems, but they're just not sort of in the forefront of everyone's mind.
Not obvious. I mean, things are getting better now. There's people starting to recognise invisible disabilities, like, because it's not visible. I guess you don't talk about it. I felt like to tell people about it would be constantly reminding them of my problems, which would make me sound like a dull, depressing person, which was not what I wanted to be. So for a lot of my problems, I've just ignored them, and just I've felt just embarrassed, but it's stupid. You shouldn't feel weak. You shouldn't feel embarrassed about your problems. Things are starting to get reckoned. What's them things in Sainsbury's? It's them lanyards, isn't it? And if you've got, if you've got, if you need some sort of extra help, you can wear these lanyards, and the staff are trained to recognise that. But on largely, these are things that's coming in now, but largely it's still an invisible disability, and it's not nothing to be ashamed of. I've always been frightened of being put on the spot for something, like having to explain your problems, and I can't. I get like tongue-tied. I honestly think that just writing things down, just having something in your wallet, just having a few things like your problem, you've got a brain injury. That's where I guess that's where that Headway brain injury card comes in.
Yeah, of course. But I suppose when it comes to the depression side of things, perhaps even also just having a dedicated note in your phone, something that, it's always with you. You can whip it out if a thought comes to mind there and then. Just picking up on the lanyard that you mentioned, and again, just for our listeners, this is the sunflower lanyard that you were talking about. You can obtain them from the Hidden Disabilities store, and it's hiddendisabilitiesstore.com. I think they don't cost very much. I think they're about 90p to purchase, and those are, I think, recognised in a number of major supermarkets and public transport as well, that somebody's got a hidden disability. And obviously it's not just for brain injury, it's for all sorts. But check out our footnotes. There will be a link on there. Coming back to how you push yourself as well, I know for you personally, Brooke, exercise has been a big part of your recovery, both from a physical and a well-being point of view. Do you think that's something that's also helped you in terms of elevating your mood?
Exercise has been my saviour, honestly. It's there's times then I forget to do it, and there's times when I'm not on the ball with it. But just when I've been for a run, I wouldn't need. Do you know what? I've run marathons, I've run ultra marathons. I don't even like running. What I like is the social side of it, and I was speaking to somebody the other day who's just like, an older guy's come to this area, and he's just been through a divorce, and he's just joined a running club, and it introduces you to a load of new people, and everybody's generally friendly, positive, and what we tend to do is we'll go out for a run, and then either go for a beer or something after, and it's really good. I mean, the physical benefits of it as well, the endorphins.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The physical benefits of exercise are quite clear, and there's plenty of research out there. And of course, it doesn't have to be running. Not everybody. No,
absolutely not. But anything that leaves you out of breath, something that breaks the norm, something that's
and
exerts yourself.
It can be anything like running, cycling, swimming, walking, as you say, and anything that I suppose. It doesn't have to be a group activity, although there is obviously a social benefit to that, potentially. But anything that makes you feel good. And, not all our listeners will want to go out running or cycling.
No, I appreciate it. Not everybody wants to run. It's because I totally get that myself. I don't even like running, but I just think it's the social aspect that's done it for me.
And, there are other social outlets out there as well for people. I'm a member of 2 choirs at the moment, and
there you go,
the social side of that is brilliant, and it's one of those activities that brings you joy and gets those endorphins going in a different way.
Yeah, in a different way. Whatever way works for you.
It's about keeping active and busy. I think.
Keeping with friends as well, keeping with people. Otherwise, if you keep refusing and learning to say yes as well, if somebody invites you somewhere, say yes. If you keep refusing to go anywhere with people will stop asking, and then they probably think that you're happier at home, but of course you're not happy at home.
So say yes. Have the exit plan that you've touched on before.
Definitely have an exit plan. Yeah.
And just push yourself to enjoy different things and celebrate when you do something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, try something new.
So in terms of help and advice then for our listeners, we've talked about all of these things at different points in today's episode. The first thing is really acknowledging that it's normal to have feelings of sadness, to go through depression after an injury. It's perfectly okay to feel that way. Don't feel embarrassed, don't feel guilty, don't feel weak. And it's also okay to mourn the loss of the person that you might have been before. But in order to try and help work through depression, we've talked about building networks and maintaining existing networks, even though it might be difficult to do and even though you might not always feel like it. But, touching base with people, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in a group situation, whatever works. Seeking professional help, I think, is a huge key. Now, that could be through your GP, if you have a psychologist or a psychiatrist, speaking to them. There are also charities out there. The most obvious one is Mind. And again, there's a link to Mind in the footnotes. Talking to friends and family, being open with them about how you're feeling. And as we've discussed, particularly with the brain injury, utilising other strategies to help you. So making notes about how you're feeling, whether that's keeping a dedicated note on your phone or a pen and paper, whatever it is, so that you have that reference straight away. You don't feel that you're being put on the spot, especially when memory is an issue.
Yeah, people having it written down is something that I found massively useful.
Definitely. And then you're able to express how you feel and articulate that when you're asked about
something that brings it to the forefront of your mind rather than trying to remember what's wrong with you and then just like tapping out and saying, oh no, I'm fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm fine is not what you are. And it's important to recognize that. We've talked about, the benefits of exercise or a healthy lifestyle, getting involved in activities, whether they're things that you do already that that raise those endorphins, that bring you joy, whether it's trying something new, pushing yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone as part and parcel of building your networks and discovering new things. You might very well find that there are things that you enjoy doing or that you're good at that you'd never tried before, like with you in the running, even if you don't enjoy it.
No, I don't enjoy it, yeah.
Celebrate your successes, no matter how small they are, even if for you a big thing is just getting out of bed.
Otherwise, they can go forgotten about, and then you think that you've not achieved anything. Even if it is getting out of bed, when you might have been depressed, and you just stay in bed. It's positive. It's important to be recognised.
Yeah, I did like your suggestion of keeping a note by your bed that today you're going to be tired. So then, even if it's a case of going, yeah, I'm tired today, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That can in itself be a big thing to celebrate.
And you expect it, and it doesn't take you by surprise, because like when you wake up and you're exhausted, and with that exhaustion comes feelings of comes feelings of depression. But if you can, if you can be forewarned about these things, then it's a lot better.
You'll be much more prepared. And focus on positives as much as you can. Try not to dwell on the negatives. And you may very well be surprised at what you can do if you focus on those positives. This is the last episode of this series. We will be back later in the year with Series 2. Please don't forget to follow, subscribe and share our content. If you do have any suggestions for topics that you'd like us to cover, why not drop us a line at hi@braininjurybites.co.uk.